On February 15th, 2018, I published a video called The Bitter Reality of Video Game Addiction. This video cataloged my dark and pretty lonely journey towards becoming an isolated and obsessed video gamer. I had spent so much time with video games that I swore I lived inside a computer screen. I went from a young man full of potential to a recluse caved up in his family's basement, staring into that old familiar deep blue digital haze all night long. In the end, it took me to a place I was not prepared to leave. I washed up on the shore of a delusional reality, alone, homeless, moneyless, and afraid of social interaction. I lost all my friends to gaming, my job, my girlfriend, and nearly dropped out of college as well. It seemed like I was heading to a place without a future, like sailing out to sea and never coming back. I had also lost who I was during this time. Once a vibrant and intellectual young man, the hours upon hours of isolated video game playing dulled my mind and transformed me into someone I could not recognize. I pretended to be normal. I lied to people. I hid my obsession. Deep down, though, I could never hide it from myself. I was a lonely video game addict with no one to call a friend. I ended this video by stating that I had been cured of this plague and had gotten back on the right track in life. The paradox being, I was actually saved by a video game, if you could believe it. The Last of Us was that game. Today I want to finish my story I talked about earlier in that video and talk about what is now my favorite game of all time and how it did this to change my life. I remember feeling many things in The Last of Us. Anger and protection for Ellie, sadness during this moment, fear here, and sometimes this kind of little silly happiness during moments like these. I remember snow falling and sticking to Ellie's hair and the paralyzing cold on Joel's face during the winter season, or how he wore that plaid shirt in the fall season when the leaves were turning colors. Whatever the memory was, though, it always came back to Joel and Ellie. I began playing The Last of Us while deep into my addiction with video games. I was unhappy, I was broke, and probably about to get fired from a job because of how introverted I had become. Without any friends, I was truly in my own world. I had my computer as my only friend. I still remember what it felt like to be that person. I remember my home during that time with the lights off and no one around me. I felt profound quietness, but not in a happy way. But after playing this game, I realized that I couldn't live life anymore like this. I couldn't live my life alone anymore. Joel and Ellie showed me a side to the human emotion that I had lost through all these years of playing video games in isolation. I wanted to have someone like that in my life too. Basically, I wanted love. I know it sounds super cheesy and super made up, but it's the truth. And if you've ever been in one of those situations before where you feel really, really alone, you do crave that human connection. The weirdest part about being alone is that when you finally do get that interaction and that love reciprocated from someone else, it often feels very unwelcome at first because you're so estranged to that feeling. You almost self-reject this feeling of companionship because it doesn't feel normal. It feels new and very strange and quite obligating at times, and very, very hard on your own persona, that which is someone who is not a socialite. We often reject these feelings that are good for us because simply we want to crawl back on our own little hole into our own little world that we are used to. This is the feeling out period that's very difficult when you start forming relationships again after being alone for so long. There's a fight or flee mentality that goes on, and usually it's easier just to flee than try to establish those relationships because it takes a lot of work. Relationships aren't formed in a minute. It takes a long time to develop two people into a mindset where they can connect, and often there's strife early on and there's a big feeling out period, which is exactly how it's reflected in The Last of Us. You guys know I'm a sucker for a good story and a good character, more so ones that start off in the wrong foot and then, get better. Loyalty should be earned, not expected. Naughty Dog fully understands that you may be cautious of both Joel and Ellie for hours upon hours, given how standoffish they are to each other. They have different motives in a world that requires cooperation to survive. They will argue one moment and then hoist each other up platforms, crates, and boxes another. They bicker and then they laugh. Joel teaches her about life and she teaches him to stop being such a pill. And slowly they become inseparable as these small helping hand moments add up and up and up. As I was playing this game, I asked myself, why couldn't I have someone like that in my life too? Why couldn't I have this connection? The story of The Last of Us, to me, wasn't a struggle for humanity or one of survival. It was more of a transformative story of love between two unlikely figures in the most unusual and crude circumstances. It ends on the most bittersweet tone, the same melancholy sadness that it starts in. I felt very similar to Joel after the introduction of The Last of Us. I had given up on life as he did and succumbed to my own darkness, bitterness, and isolated desolation. Just like him, I was a half-dead spider with my head pointing towards the ground, brooding my way around the world, half hoping someone would come up and help me get better. Ellie is that person for Joel that makes him into a better person and digs him out of his own grave. To be honest, I needed someone like that too. Even though Ellie herself helps him along the way, he is the one that defeats his inner demons that are saying to him, "You're going to be alone forever," and that life is a black hole that should be lived in alone. That made me want to do the same because I saw that process play itself out in this game, and it was amazing. Because this is my favorite game of all time and I really admire what Naughty Dog was able to accomplish with The Last of Us, I feel like it's a disservice to go any further in terms of dissecting the game, and I really don't want to. When I finished The Last of Us, I went to bed and reflected on my life, that I was going to change, and I needed to change. It sounds really stupid, a guy that is playing a video game that has some sort of realization about his life. He sees two characters come together in a way that shows love in a way that he just doesn't have because he's a hermit crab. It all sounds ridiculous, I know, but you know what? It was the process I went through, and this is my channel, and this is what I want to share. It's true. This is why we play video games, because they can have such an emotional impact on us that it actually feels almost more impactful than it can in real life. We can garner so many lessons from video games as a whole, and there are so many people out there that don't play video games that do not get to experience this. They do not appreciate the craftsmanship and the emotion and the storytelling that goes into some of these games. They don't appreciate it because they cannot see it for themselves. There are a few games out there that have the ability to impact you on a deeply intimate level, and for me, this was that game. I have to attribute this, though, not to the game itself, but where you are in your life when you're playing these types of games and what your environment is all about. I was in such a low spot in my life during this point, an all-time low. We've all been there where we wake up and it's hard to get out of bed. I was in that mentality when I first popped in this disc for this game in my PlayStation 3. It was a dark night. It was so quiet and I was so sad. So the emotional impact of this game hit me probably harder than it did most people. Of course, it's an amazing game and most people will own up to that fact. But for it to impact someone on such an intimate level requires that person to be in a certain mindset, and I definitely was. This is why I play video games, and this is why I'm drawn to the kind of linear storytelling narrative experience, because it's really relatable at times, and it could really hit you hard. Believe it or not, The Last of Us saved me from sinking into the deep black abyss of total desolation, honestly. Maybe something would have come along after this had I not played this game and kind of made me come to a point of realization as well that I needed to change, that I needed to get out into the world. But at this time, this point in my life, this was the game. So yes, I wanted to get better, and this game made me want to become a better human being and want to reach out to people, establish relationships, and find someone that I could extract love from, the same way that Joel and Ellie did so in The Last of Us. A few days later, I walked into a coffee shop and I saw a very attractive woman, a beautiful woman sitting comfortably near a window. I had not approached a woman in a very long time, I will be honest, but the sun was shining down on her through the window and she just looked very inviting and warm. For whatever reason, I mustered up the courage to go up to her and I approached her and I asked what her name was. And those words would be the start of some of the greatest years of my life that I ever had with a partner. So it was at this moment that I found love and happiness, and it flourished into the best relationship I ever had, and it changed me as a human being, and I became less of a video gamer and more of a good person out there with a balanced lifestyle and just more of a happy soul. So can I attribute this to The Last of Us? Maybe not like 100%, but I think that at least The Last of Us for me was a journey that made me open my eyes up to the fact that, there is someone out there for me. There is someone out there that's going to bring me happiness, and I have to go out there and find them. And I'm not going to be able to find that person by living in isolation anymore and just feeling bad about myself and thinking that the world is an enemy. The Last of Us is more about Ellie. I think everyone will agree on that. But for me, it was more of a connection to Joel and the sensation that someone out there can help me get better as a human being, and I can find love, and I don't have to fight it. Bad things happen sometimes. We go down roads that we shouldn't go down, but there are experiences out there that you can acquire that make you realize that you should get back on the right track, and that there is someone out there that will make your life better. That, for me, is the takeaway for The Last of Us, my favorite game of all time. So if you made it this far, guys, I want to thank you for watching. I know this was a little bit of a hard-to-believe story. A game can save someone's life and make them realize that they need to become a better person, and they need to find some love out there. But you know what? This is my story, and it's true. And if you've had one similar to this with The Last of Us or maybe a different game, I'd love to read it. So send me an email or maybe comment down below and share your stories with me, because video games can be some of the most amazing experiences out there, and they can definitely have a profound impact on us as people. So have yourself a great day, guys, and we'll see you in our next video. Peace, love, and happiness. Until then, take care.